Emotions aren't the only context where Pixar can show off some insane displays of power. I'm Kristijan with Wicked Binge, and today we're taking a look at the villains/antagonists from Pixar's library and ranking them from weak to powerful. Now, to keep things interesting, we're going to be ranking villains contextually. Basically, who's the biggest threat to the main group of the movie they're in? Be that through abilities, influence, resources, and or sheer firepower, we're taking it all into account. With that, we'll be starting off with the antagonists who don't leave too much to worry about. Consider this the D tier. Our pick for Pixar's weakest antagonistic link is one of several not traditionally evil antagonists, Joy. She was a little hard to rank, even contextually speaking, but here's the thing. Although Inside Out takes place inside the subconscious of a young girl, it still technically centers on the human world. Joy has great influence over her host, Riley. Her tendency to dominate other emotions often causes her to bottle up her negative feelings. So you could potentially make a case for her being the leader of the five, in a sense. But objectively speaking, she's only 1/5 of Riley's subconscious, and Riley is just a little kid who doesn't really have any power nor influence of her own yet. Joy's influence in Riley's mind is fairly strong, but still leaves a lot to be desired, and that's only just one emotion of one person. The whole point of the movie is that every emotion is important, not just Joy. That being said, along with the fact that she's the furthest thing from a malicious antagonist, makes Joy's placement at the bottom rather fitting. As a close runner-up, we have Tyler from Turning Red. Tyler's no major villain, but one of those who's literally just a kid. Objectively speaking, there's nothing particularly noteworthy about him. He's just kind of mean. Mean or destructive kids are a common archetype in the world of Pixar, but what sets Tyler apart is the fact that this is quite literally where his character and threat end. He's got decent influence over other kids at school, but only because of his wealth, as nobody seems to really be interested in his party until May shows up. Heck, they even become friends by the end. Even his bullying isn't that strong. Tough break, dude. He's not bad at dodgeball, though. Moving on to a slightly more threatening bully is Ercole Visconti. The main difference between Ercole and Tyler, aside from Ercole being a significantly worse person, is that he's bigger and more intimidating. This leads to him being able to boss other kids around, but it also leads to him being utterly loathed by everyone else, and to nobody coming to his aid the moment he's not on top anymore. He's all bark, no bite, and the town was understandably ready to get this dog a muzzle.
It's over. The reign of terror. It's finally over!
Next up, let's give a big shining smile to Dr. Sherman, the first dentist that children of the 2000s learned to fear. I know the dentist can be scary. God forbid if you don't have insurance. Imagine actually having good dental. But Sherman's really just the villain by association. To humanity, he's a dentist who enjoys scuba diving as a hobby, sometimes bringing cute fish home for his niece Darla. To fish, he's a giant kidnapper who unknowingly delivers sea creatures to their graves at the hands of his evil niece Darla. What puts him in the bottom tier is not only his lack of any special abilities or powers, unless you count dentistry skills, but also the fact that he does no actual harm to the fish.
Poor little guy.
He just moves them to another environment. I suppose he could use his dentistry tools to do some damage to the patient, but now we're getting a little too hypothetical there. Now, we aren't quite to the really scary villains yet, but these guys can cause some noticeable trouble. This is the C tier. Hide your favorite toys and Cheetos. Next up is Al. Collecting can be a fun hobby. It's also perfectly harmless in moderation, depending on what you're collecting. Al is neither of these things, though. He is smart enough to steal a child's toy from a garage sale, giving him the same skill as Dr. Sherman of indirect kidnapping. The difference is that Al is doing this for profit and has no issue scamming people.
And they're gonna make me big bucks.
Nor even children to get those sweet bucks. If you aren't a toy or someone trying to hold on to a toy, Al is pretty negligible of a threat, but in a world of sentient toys, he's still worth a mention, and we're gonna put him above Dr. Sherman for the fact that he's actually a bad guy. Returning to the whole villainous children thing, next up is Darla, terror to fish everywhere, or at least fish at the dentist office. To humanity, she's just a rambunctious child, but this movie isn't about humanity, it's about fish-anity. And to fish, Darla is a gigantic, gleeful serial killer.
Darla!
Far from a malicious one, though, she's just a hyperactive kid who loves fishies, and her affection for them often leads to her unknowingly terrorizing them, or even shaking them to death. Basically, as far as this list is concerned, she's Dr. Sherman, but with some actual destructive tendencies. Still, being a bad pet owner is far from the worst anyone on this list gets. Now we're getting to some real monsters. Roar Omega Roar! In the world of Monsters, Inc., being scary is everything. Without screams, there's no energy, until they learn that laughter exists. But at this point, scary is everything, so Roar Omega Roar is a pretty tough team due to their high rank at Monsters University, as well as their popularity meaning some increased strength in numbers. While they'd certainly be a force to be reckoned with in our world, in a world made up of monsters, the best they could be compared to would be some rowdy frat boys. Alright, time to speed on to the next entries. Jackson Storm and Chick Hicks. Given that they're in a universe of sentient cars, these guys are basically track stars. We rank them together because neither of them necessarily have an advantage over the other in terms of power. They're decently charismatic when they're showing off their wins, but there's not much to go off of other than that, and some speed. Still, you can't really beat what you can't catch, so credit where it's due.
Good luck out there, champ. You're gonna need it.
Once again, like in our original video, Thunderclap sticks near the bottom despite being a literal dinosaur. But much like the movie he's from, Thunderclap manages to be unimpressive despite being a freaking dinosaur. Yeah, he's got flight and some decent allies, but in this prehistoric context, they're more or less just bullies. That said, given their willingness to kill Arlo in order to eat his little human buddy, they're gonna get a few extra points on the power scale. Also, the flight thing is still pretty impressive, honestly. Imagine a human with wings trying to kill you and eat your pet. Digging deeper into the list is Stinky Pete. Stinky Pete's an impressive people person, despite being perpetually stuck in a box.
It's a box.
He's mint in the box. Never been open.
He successfully manipulates Woody, Jesse, and Bullseye on multiple occasions. Once, he tricks Woody into believing Jesse was the one who thwarted his escape plan when it was actually him. Being able to manipulate situations to his own visions without even having use of his body most of the time makes him an impressively intelligent threat. It's time to gab about Gabby. While she's probably the least malicious of Toy Story's villains, thinking in context of toys makes her kind of harrowing. Gabby was charismatic and smart enough to hold Forky hostage as leverage so she could extort Woody's voice box from him. Human translation, she's kidnapping a mentally ill man to extort another man's organs, and does so successfully. She may have found redemption in the end, but the fact that she was able to come up with a plan like this and pull it off earns her some definite credit. Next is Pixar's newest and most harmless villain, Bernie Lumen. This is where judging things contextually gets kinda dicey. Since Elemental is a rom-com, it's easier than some. We really can just view Bernie as some guy, subjectively. But then there's the fact that this dude is literally made of fire? In the world of Element City? That means that if he wanted to, he could potentially wipe out about a fourth of the population quite easily. Spoilers, trees aren't fireproof. I know this isn't Avatar or Pokemon, but if it were, Bernie could have been an absolute menace, especially given his deep connection to fire culture and him being basically the core of its place in Element City. He's ranked this high not because he would do anything heinous, but because he definitely could. We're looking at power after all. We're really cooking now because the tail end of this section is serving up Chef Skinner. He commands a huge kitchen of chefs and is intelligent enough to know what information to keep or hide from his employees. He's a smart guy, and being a master chef, he can work under pressure, even if he himself is also causing some of the pressure.
Right. Exactly.
Physically, he is pretty fast given how he chased Remy through the city streets, but overall, Skinner isn't really anything to write home about. He's an angry, bitter man who wants to stay on top no matter what it takes, and while his influence is worth some points, he's nothing compared to the later threats on the list. But now we're getting to the tougher side of villainy. These guys aren't exactly world domination material, but they're strong enough to fall into the B tier. Him being ranked this high up is probably going to be controversial, but next is Sid Phillips. It's been said plenty of times before, Sid's only the villain of the movie because we see it from the toys' perspective. But since this list, by its very nature, demands us to do so, let's reignite our imaginations for this. Sid is a gigantic beast who towers over toys and can torture and even kill them in different ways. He has a creative mind, extreme physical strength, and a huge weapon arsenal, from a toy's perspective, of course. His weakness is him being a child. His mind can hardly comprehend the toys being sentient, so a word from them is enough to freak him out and totally deter him. But to a toy, Sid is an absolutely horrific threat to behold. Arguably the least discussed villain in Pixar history, Terry from Soul is next. He plays a pretty minor role in the movie, with his pursuit of 22 being just one of many conflicts therein, and it really doesn't even have any significance beyond some fun comic relief. That doesn't change the fact that he's able to reap the souls of humankind though, as well as travel between the realms of life and death. While he does need to have the approval of authorities higher than himself, that's still pretty impressive. Lotso's minions may not be in as bright of a spotlight as their boss, but that doesn't mean they're anywhere near friendly faces. Each of them has their own special focus area, from that terrifying cymbal-crashing monkey acting as security to Big Baby being the muscle of the group. They all do what they do very well, but none of them would be an unbeatable wall on their own, and of course, they're all subject to the commands of Lotso, keeping them outside the power range of major villains. We've talked about some monsters already, but few are as scary as Randall Bogs, which we're sure he'd take as a compliment. Randall is one of, if not the most evil villain in Pixar's history. I know a lot of you have another contender for that, but in terms terms of power, he's not exactly top shelf, but his psychotic tendencies serve him well in the efforts to outscare Sully. He's physically very mobile and strong, having no problems navigating the moving rows of doors while fleeing from Sully and Mike. He's also great at gathering intel, seeing as to how he's a chameleon who can easily sneak up on people and terrify them. In an assassin context, few villains on our list could outdo Randall. If he were physically stronger or had more social influence, he'd definitely be higher. Now it's time to get to the villains who really mean business and have the firepower to show it. This is the A tier of villainy. Onward and upward to Charles Muntz.
Who's Charles Muntz?
Carl and Ellie's former adventurer idol, he was discredited after being thought to have brought back fake bones from one of his expeditions. His determination to track down the real deal and cleanse his reputation drove him mad, to the point where he killed multiple people to ensure that he alone would be the one to find this mysterious specimen. Aside from his giant airship, he's got a decent amount of weaponry and a healthy dose of ruthlessness. He didn't even hesitate to pull a gun on Russell, a literal child. He loses points for his old age and deteriorating mind, but he makes up for that handsomely with the resources he's got at his disposal. Oh, and the pack of dogs. Don't forget those guys. Next up is formerly beloved, formerly alive musical icon Ernesto De La Cruz from Coco. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. De La Cruz was a beloved musician in his day and continued to be so in the world of the dead, but he fell from grace once it was ultimately revealed that he was the one who killed his best friend Hector in an effort to take his music for himself.
I am the one who's willing to do what it takes to seize my moment.
Being smart and composed enough to pull off a murder like this while protecting his reputation for centuries is worth some power points, as is his extreme popularity, making it hard to get any dirt on him. He does get extra points for being greatly beloved both in life and death until the truth was uncovered. Everyone was on La Cruz's side. Now, while he does ultimately turn out to be a decent guy, we've got to give a mention to Finding Nemo's Bruce. One of the few characters we admittedly feel remiss not including in our good to evil redux, Bruce isn't a villain in the traditional sense. The thing is, despite his attempts to fight his bloodthirsty urges, it's a legitimate challenge for Bruce to not see fish as food rather than friends. He's doing his best, and he also has extreme bloodlust, 300 teeth, and no father figure to guide his way.
Never knew my father!
Being that he's a shark in water, he's in his element and capable of absolutely dominating it. Next is the very fittingly named Mirage, Syndrome's partner in crime. Mirage has a lot of resources at her disposal and uses them extremely well, evidenced by her ability to summon Mr. Incredible to a remote location to handle a top secret mission with his family being none the wiser for a time. She is able to deceive him for a long time and nearly gets away with it, and considering how many supers Syndrome had managed to kill up until that point, that would have been far from the first time she'd done it. That said, Mirage works best as support. She does manage to outsmart supers and even helps to defeat Syndrome ultimately, but she isn't a fighter herself, so while her genius intellect is enough to secure a high spot, it's not quite enough to get her into our final category. This section is reserved for the villains who individually pose threats substantial to their own worlds, whether that's a toy box or the whole galaxy. These final 10 are the top tier villains. We'll kick this category off with Mordu from Brave. He's perhaps the simplest villain on this entire list in terms of power.
Mordu.
While other villains have factors like armies, fans, species, etc. to take into account, Mordu is literally just he's a giant freaking bear. He's extremely strong, able to break weapons and limbs that attack him with ease. Brute force isn't the only thing a villain needs, but when you've got as much of it as Mordu, it's enough to make you a top shelf threat nonetheless. Toxic parents are their own breed of villainy. Enter Ming Lee. As Malin's mother, she desperately tries to keep her daughter from rebelling against her and embracing her panda. We see her anger in full force when she finds May and friends at the Four Town concert, practically losing her mind and giving full control to her panda form. Just one stomp from her is enough to create shockwaves powerful enough to make the ground like a moon bounce to May, even in her massive panda form. She towers over the concert venue and tears it apart with ease. If her motives were anything beyond just disciplining her daughter, we fear what she could accomplish. The only thing keeping Ming Lee from being any higher is the fact that this form of hers only really comes out due to a failed ritual, repressed trauma, and unbridled anger. Still extremely powerful, but it's not exactly a choice she made, and we'd hope it's one that she won't make again, but like with Mordu, that brute strength is just too much to ignore for this list. Now, for the villain who's objectively the weakest, but contextually pretty freaky, Hopper from A Bug's Life. A dictator with an iron fist, Hopper uses his relatively large size to intimidate those around him. Despite he himself admitting that the ants outnumber the grasshoppers 10-1, Hopper manages to not only rally the other grasshoppers under his control, but to successfully intimidate the ants into working for him.
Put on this earth to serve us.
This psychological warfare keeps the whole of 2 colonies under his control, and even if it's mostly a facade of power, Hopper has everyone fooled and uses that to his advantage to stock up all the food he can eat. Don't let the strawberry scent fool you. There's nothing sweet about Lotso-huggin' bear. Sure, he's a big cuddly teddy bear. To a human, there are few things more cozy and harmless. He's a symbol of innocence. To the toys of Sunnyside Daycare, though, he's basically Hopper, but arguably an even bigger threat. Take Hopper's resources of henchmen and add an extra layer of psychological manipulation to make himself seem perfectly innocent at first. He's able to not only trick Woody's gang into trusting him at first, but in the final act, he even convinces them to get him out from under some rubble and up to a switch that would stop the conveyor belt, only to promptly abandon them to die for no reason other than spite at that point. He's also even more ruthless in his methods, and more or less brainwashes Buzz into becoming his servant by messing with his body. This dude straight up performed a lobotomy and made a highly trained fighter his slave. Oh, and that's not even mentioning his underlings, who we talked about earlier. If he hadn't become a hood ornament, it's safe to say he would have made someone else into one. Everybody hide your kids and barricade their closets because Mr. Water Noose is coming next. It's important to remember that Water Noose, terrifying though he may be, is in a world of monsters, so we've got to take his powers in that context. That said, Water Noose is terrifying even in that lens. As CEO of Monsters Inc., he has access to technology that can transport his employees to different dimensions, and if someone needs to be gotten rid of, he can simply shred the door after pushing them through. He can also use his employees to his advantage, whether they be good like Sully, who he motivates to work hard and ultimately exiles, or even a complete psychopath like Randall, utilizing his technology and malice to further his plans to keep the company afloat. Desperation, wealth, and the complete disintegration of morals make for a terrifying combination, and Water Noose shows that they can lead to some true horrors. Next up is Cars 2's surprisingly malicious main villain, Miles Axelrod. It may be strange that a villain from Cars, of all franchises, is this high up, but where Chick Hicks's and Jackson Storm's antagonism begins and ends at vroom vroom grr, angry face, Miles Axelrod's begins at an altruistic persona and ends with legitimate mass terrorism. Seriously, look at this dude's crime list on the Villains Wiki. It's both hilarious and terrifying simultaneously. He has immense wealth and influence, using his charm to get whatever money he can out of turning the world against alternative fuel.
Alternative energy is the future.
He can hire as many people as needed to pull this off, charm as many celebrities as needed to get suspicion off his back, and is one of the few villains who came close to directly killing multiple main characters. Missing out just barely on the top 3 is Incredibles 2's screenslaver, Evelyn Deor. While she's one of Pixar's less revered twist villains, Evelyn Deor has one of the most impressive power sets we've seen yet. Syndrome had power and determination, and Mirage had excellent resources and skills of deception. Evelyn has both, and isn't afraid to use them. She's able to use the screenslaver character to create massive crime scenes to distract supers as she sees fit, and exerts full and total control over others to get her plans underway. By staying on the sidelines, Evelyn keeps herself out of suspicion as much as possible, but she's not even the scariest villain in this superpowered world. The Bronze Medal of Power goes to the Incredibles' Syndrome, formerly Buddy, and I guess Incrediboy?
Buddy!
My name is Incrediboy.
His lack of superpowers didn't stop him from seeking revenge on Mr. Incredible for rejecting him as a sidekick. On top of creating his own superpowers, he, with the help of Mirage, manages to kill multiple supers with calculated malice. He's an absolute genius capable of deceiving supers into getting back into the game, only to kill them with his nearly invincible robots, simultaneously testing the inventions and purging the supers. Considering he had the resources to lure in and restrain Mr. Incredible, it's no wonder why he's ranked so high. And his view of everyone, even his supposed lover Mirage, as expendable makes him even more terrifying. Who knows what a terror he could have become if he didn't have every hero's greatest weakness, a cape. And all jokes aside, he was only ultimately defeated when his own robot turned on him. The Silver Medal of Power, like in our Good to Evil Redux, goes to last time's gold medalist, Otto. I swear, we aren't doing it on purpose. Oh man, where to begin with this guy? Otto is an absolute menace, to be sure. He's a machine who will follow his own protocol to the very end, even if that means rebelling against his own captain. Mental fortitude is absolutely maxed out, as are his resources. He controls the entirety of his ship, and by extension, the entire remainder of the human race. His one and only weak point is an off switch, and a pretty small one at that. Tack on the fact that every human in this universe is built like a beanbag chair with slightly less mobility, and you've got a literally unstoppable machine. Unless you press the one button specifically designed to stop him. Then you can stop him, I guess, but it won't be easy. But what if you took all those powers and resources, and then some, coupled with complete autonomy? On that note, we're giving the Gold Medal of Power to Emperor Zerg. Regardless of your opinions of Lightyear as a movie, it's hard to deny it did a great job of showing why Rex had such a hard time taking the Space Emperor down.
I finally defeated Zerg!
In this movie, Zerg is a future version of Buzz. That means he has all of Buzz's abilities, including expertly honed combat skills, genius level intelligence, access to futuristic space travel and time travel equipment, socks, Ivan, etc. That's already impressive, but due to his borrowing of armor from the even further future, he's able to breathe in space, shoot massive lasers and ion blasts, move with intense enough speed to catch up with Buzz's ship and cling to it, and only ends up defeated when Buzz hits his power crystal head on. Otto was strong, for sure, and he held the fate of humanity in his hands, but Zerg is a genius with a powerful mech suit that could take on most of this list's villains at the same time in a head-to-head fight, and has both the knowledge and resources to time travel in order to basically rewrite reality into whatever he wants, except for a better movie.